Sometime in the 2020s, two geeks from across social media formed an alliance to bring you geek news from across the Nostalgiaverse. They are Jacob's Toys and SuperSorrell. So strap yourselves in for the weekly live show that brings you toy news, TV and movie reviews, special guests, opinions, tangents, and bad impressions. Reveals, releases, thoughts, and maybe dreams. So prepare yourselves for the Geek Week in Review. Live.
I can just see you in the I can see you in the like waiting area, just like putting the mask on. Hello. Welcome. This is the Geek Week, episode 152 with me, Jacob's Toys, and of course, the wonderful one and only SuperSorrell in the scary movie ghost face mask. That's pretty cool. I always wanted that one.
Gonna slash your catch and hold your ass for running walk because your balls at the phone rings, don't answer the call.
That's the one I always wanted to get, but we'll get to it. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. There's loads of people.
Jesus Christ.
There's loads of people in the comments already chatting away, so we will get to you as the show goes on. Do carry on with the comments, and we will bring them in, put them up on screen and stuff as we're talking. Of course, it doesn't matter where you're watching, as long as you're watching. So put those comments in, and we'll follow along. Yeah. And if you're watching us on repeat, if you're watching us on catch up, what is the hashtag they need to use, Mr. Sorrell?
Hashtag ketchup crew.
Ketchup crew, not ketchup crew, catch up crew. Let's do a couple of shout outs very quickly. It started with a click. Shelley is there. Hello, evening, everyone. Andy Roberts as well. Figure fan 36. Let's go. Joby one saying happy to catch a live for once. That's wicked. Good to see you, my friend. We'll get some more of those as we go. How's your week been, Sorrell? Good?
Good, man. Good.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting week.
It has. Have you been watching X-Men 97? Have you caught up yet?
No. Mate, I stopped watching. Gambit died, and I've not seen it since.
You saw the Genosha episode then, when they're like all like the party in and all that kind of stuff, and then it all like everyone get killed.
I'm gonna basically go back and binge watch the whole thing now that's all online together. I'm gonna sit and binge watch it together. Do you know what? I'm so trained now to binge watch. I can't do week to week. Like when Chucky season 3 were on, I was really struggling, so I waited until more or less most of part 2 was online before I could it was on the air, and I could sit and binge watch like most of it in one go. I can't do week to week.
Man, it was so good. It's they've just had the like the Rotten Tomatoes score come out, and it's like hit as a 98%. Like it's the highest ranked Marvel television show of all time, or something stupid like that. So it is phenomenal. Like what they managed to do with it, and how they managed to give every character a decent story arc without kind of like a proper story arc, as opposed to like a cheesy one or anything. Excuse me, like that. Like it was just fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. Every episode just got better and better, and the finale was just absolutely insane, and it was left on a massive cliffhanger, and we know that season 2 is obviously coming next year, so 2025 we're going to get season 2, and for anybody that has watched it, there is that kind of mid-credits scene as well, which leads on to a certain big bad beginning with A, ending with E, okay. Which we all knew. As soon as Gambit died, we all knew that it was coming. But yeah. So Joey one said, I wonder if losing the main writer is going to affect next season. So we're talking about Bo, I can't remember his surname, but he was let go obviously just ahead of the premiere of season 1. But he was involved in season 1 and season 2. So I think season 2 is very much going to be in the same vein. It's going to be very much along the same, the same kind of feel as season 1. I think it'll be interesting to see how, if it reaches a season 3, how that's affected, whether that changes or not. Interesting enough, they've not really announced or discussed why he was let go. Like, there's not been any real
Yeah.
explanation. It's all been kept quite hush hush, which is quite peculiar.
I know a lot of stuff's done by computers these days, not hand drawn anymore, or whatever. But it still takes a while to animate things like that. So I mean, if something's coming out for next year, I would say that probably 90% of it must have been written by now. They must have had it written prior to, the season 2 getting greenlit. There's no way Disney greenlit it without a script. So I mean,
no, my understanding is season 1 and season 2 were kind of written almost
together,
side by side.
yeah.
And then season 3 is if it gets to season 3. But the biggest one for me was all the cameos. Like, there were so many cameos in that final episode, and we'll talk about it a little bit because it doesn't really give too much away. But we saw Cloak and Dagger, we saw Daredevil, we saw Iron Man, we saw Captain America, we saw Peter, we saw MJ, we saw Flash, we saw Doctor Strange, we saw Quicksilver, we saw Witch, we saw who else did we see? There was more. Oh, Black Panther was there as well. There was just so many cameos, and the interesting one for me is that so many people are now calling out for a Spider-Man 98 like episode or season or whatever, which I think is very doable. Like, they've teased Spider-Man a couple of times now across the series. I think it's very doable.
It's 100% happening. And if they've already introduced other characters like Cloak and Dagger, Daredevil, they'll all cross over into Spider-Man, won't they? And
Could do.
it would be cool to see them doing animated Avengers, even. I mean, with Captain America, Black Panther.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a bunch of one-shot, one-off stories, or they don't have to do a series. If they just did, like I say, like a bunch of one-shot animations, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I think like a 40-minute or like a 2-parter or something.
Yeah, there's definitely a bigger picture going on because obviously they kind of announced with the Marvel animation title at the beginning of it, didn't they? So
yeah.
I think that there's definitely a bigger picture going on. I just want to see that Spider-Man intro, like, because where they remastered the X-Men intro, and I actually put on my Instagram like a side-by-side comparison of them both, and they are literally like for like. But to have that Spider-Man intro kind of reworked and get a modernized version of that would just be everything. Really would. But yeah, it's good. It's definitely good television. You need to catch up because yeah, it's superb. Like, one of the best Marvel shows, and it's just, even as a cartoon and it was like an animation, it still hit really hard, like really hard. But killing Gambit off, man, that was. I know there's a bigger picture going on, but it's Gambit. Do you know what I mean? And like, even to the extent where like they took him out of the opening credits, like he no longer had like a title card, like it was replaced with Nightcrawler. And even little things like there's bits where they're kind of running across the screen and they took him out of that and put like Nightcrawler in. And I was like, wow, that's like harsh. That is harsh. But I think if you think back to the original X-Men animated series, one of the big things was that they killed Morph off so early. And it was that kind of, there's death, there's loss. This person goes and they don't come back. And I think by doing that with Gambit in this series was kind of a clever way of sticking to that level of the kind of what the original series set up.
And they knew that by doing Gambit, they would get a reaction because it's the most. He's like the fan. He's like Boba Fett of the Marvel universe. You know what I mean? He's one of my favorites. The fanboy favorite.
Hands down, one of my favorites. Like, yeah, I always wanted to be Gambit when I was reading the comics and watching the show. Like, he was the one for me. I was like, yeah. I don't know if I could pull the outfit off, but I was like, yeah, Gambit's the one for me. But yeah, so X-Men 97 happened. That kind of finished. That concluded. I saw Annabelle.
Yeah, Annabelle?
I went to see Abigail. Sorry, not Annabelle. Abigail. I loved it.
Great movie.
I absolutely loved it from beginning to end. Absolutely loved it. It was very very in the vein of like Lost Boys, like that kind of vampire, like you said, didn't you? But yeah, I just I don't know why anyone wouldn't like it as a vampire film.
I liked the fact that it was like I say, like when they turned into like the big nasty vampires, they were like prosthetics things. They made the faces bunch up a little bit, a bit like what they did with Buffy and stuff in Lost Boys.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah. It goes back to that old 80s vampire.
But there just wasn't a bit that I disliked.
Yeah, it wasn't boring at any point. It was a very good popcorn movie.
No,
You didn't get bored at all through that entire movie.
no,
I
not
love
at
when
all.
Catherine Newton does her vampire shtick bit as well in it. That's brilliant.
Where is she from? What else has she been in? I was trying to put my.
So Catherine Newton, she's becoming a bit of a scream queen. She was in the that Frankenstein movie that came out. That what's it called? The new one with Colin Sprouse and stuff in it.
Oh right, yes,
She was in
yeah.
that, and then she was in Ant-Man 3. She's his daughter in it. She's Cassie, isn't she?
Of course
she's the new
she
Cassie.
is. Yes, it's the blonde hair. That's what threw me.
Yeah,
yeah. I was trying. I was like, I know this character. Like, I know this woman. Like, where is she from? And yeah, that's it. It's Ant-Man. I'm thinking of.
Yeah, she's slowly becoming a bit of a scream queen in the horror world at the minute. She's like in constant horror after horror after horror. So
wow,
she's been a bit typecasted. She just appeared at Spooky Empire in Florida this weekend.
Oh,
she was
really?
signing autographs all weekend.
Nice. Yeah, no, I liked it. I really enjoyed it from beginning to end. I was hooked. Like I was in it, and it was predictable, but in an unpredictable way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I kind of knew where it was going, but there were still things that I was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I loved the way they like proper exploded when the sun hit them. And like the way her arm exploded, like she didn't completely explode, it was just her hand like blew up. Like, oh, absolutely brilliant. And all the characters in it as well were really likable in a really dislikable way. Like I hated some of them, but it was good. It was good.
So for me, they're all Universal and Blumhouse keep saying they're not doing this. This is not what they're doing. But if you think about it, they've done. They did The Invisible Man. That was a modernized version of it, set in the modern world. Now they've just released Abigail. Abigail, and she's in the modern world, and we got a Dracula cameo at the end. I mean, he's meant to be Dracula. He's Dracula's daughter. Yeah. And we've got the Wolfman coming out next year from Blumhouse, which is a modern version. They're slowly building up a dark universe piece by piece, but without saying it. I think they don't want to say we're doing it for it to then fall apart at last minute with Universal. So I think they're releasing these films and slowly paving the way, a bit like what they did, a bit like what Marvel did with the Avengers. Not announce it straight away, but you can see where it's headed.
But they were supposed to be doing like a MonsterVerse, weren't they? Because
it was the Mummy, wasn't it?
It was the Mummy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it fell apart instantly. But the concept was great. I mean, I love the idea of Dr. Jekyll being this keeper of like dark creatures and secrets for like an underground society. That was pretty cool. But yeah, it just fell apart.
I really enjoyed that as a movie as well.
I was good.
I mean, it was like you say, a popcorn movie. Like I didn't hate it. I didn't.
Any movie where there's action, monsters, and blood, I'll sit through it. Doesn't matter how rubbish it is. I love B movie horrors, for God's sake, so I'll sit through anything.
Yeah. Have you seen that new one advertised?
Sting? Oh, Sting. I haven't seen Sting yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet. No. But it's it's like an alien spider, isn't it? But I just think it's really corny the way that the girl in it's called Charlotte. It was like, no, I see what you're doing there. But yeah, no, it's very, very good.
Strangers very was funny though this weekend. I went to see that on Friday.
Part one.
So that's it's basically a remake of the 2008 movie. They basically modernized the original film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not like a direct, like it's not like the same characters or anything. It's just that it's the same concept. It's a cabin and two people and a couple, and they're just being captured by the strangers. And it's chapter 1, this one. So there's a post-credit scene, but a lot of people aren't sticking around for it. Because like my cinema emptied out, and I was the only one left because I knew it was coming. So I always Google before I got cinema these days. I don't know if I need to stick around.
I do. As soon as the credits roll, I get on Google and I'm like, does X have a post-credit scene?
So a lot of people missed the little teaser bit that's basically going to show you where chapter 2 was headed. So a lot of people missed that. But it was an alright movie. It wasn't the best, but it was an alright film. A lot of people are really panning it. But what I found really funny in it, the girl in it, I forgot her name, she's released a spoiler on her TikTok tonight, and the film's only been out 40 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did she...
basically, she said she put her character's name and put "Running Out of the Strangers" Chapter 1, like, and it's playing "I'm a Survivor, I'm gonna get."
Oh.
So like that's like, there's no point seeing the film now. Like, that's a massive spoiler.
I find films like this are really up against it. So you have like films like The Purge, films like The Strangers, like even to an extent films like Saw and stuff. But Saw was slightly different because of what they did with the story. But I think when you've got the concept of a really good like movie, a really good sort of story, like The Purge, I think is a really interesting take on like dystopian kind of not too far away and all that kind of stuff.
Deep.
And it really could kind of like, you see some of the stuff and you're just kind of thinking, I could see this happening.
I could see America doing it. They're mad enough.
Yeah.
I could see America doing that.
Do you know what I mean?
In a certain state or something.
And things like we were talking to One Good Scare last week about like The Strangers is scary because it's you know, it could happen, you know, and that's the scary thing about it. But I think when they try too hard to make sequels or make trilogies or anything like that, and you're essentially taking the same concept, like The Purge, for example, I really loved, and I watched all of the sequels, and I kind of liked them, but I kind of knew what to expect. And I even sat down and watched through the TV show because they made a TV show on it as well. And although it's kind of following different people in The Purge, you still kind of know what to expect. You're like, okay, the shutters are going down, right? This is going to happen. There's going to be somebody that's sold codes off, or there's going to be somebody that's kind of, you know, setting up illegal fights and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, so you kind of know what to expect. But, and I think The Strangers kind of falls into that bracket as well, is that it's going to be very much a kind of a chaser slasher situation where
this is the thing. People are expecting that. The first one is that, but you can see where it's going to go with this one, and it's one cohesive storyline.
Okay.
So it's hard to do it without spoiling it for you.
You can do it.
Yes. Sorry, everyone in the chat, by the way. If you want to mute for the next 10 seconds or whatever, mute and I'll wave at the screen when you can unmute. Basically, she survives at the end. It shows both of them, like the husband and wife, both get stabbed by the bagman and these little henchmen. And the boyfriend dies because he spits up blood and they kick his chair over and he's bleeding out and stuff. She just kind of just blacks out, and you think she's dead, to be honest. And then you see the lights flashing and coming towards the house, and the strangers sort of look around at each other and then just walk out in different directions. Very cool little ending. But then the post-credit scene shows her waking up in the hospital.
Okay.
So it shows her sort of opening her eyes and going, like looking around and like in the darkness and stuff. And then she's like, she relaxes and puts her head back. It's like this, that kind of moment of it's all over kind of thing. And as her head goes back, you just see the bagman crouched down at the side of the bed, just staring at the camera. It's a bit of a fourth wall break, but it's great. He's just staring into the camera like that, just menacingly.
In the hospital?
Yeah, he's at the side of the bed in the hospital. He's at the side of her bed.
Wow.
And it just comes up saying, boom, chapter 2 coming soon. So this is one cohesive story where they're chasing her or whoever throughout the 3 chapters. And apparently all 3 films have been written and shot in succession. So like, well, they had all the actors. They basically filmed all 3 movies back to back.
Yeah. So there's danger there because they risk kind of doing what they did with Sydney in Scream. And it kind of got to the stage where you're like, doesn't matter what she does, you know that Sydney's not going down because it's Sidney Prescott and you haven't got Scream without it. So yeah, I'd like to think that this character gets killed off straight away in the first minutes of the second one. That'd be quite interesting. But yeah, no, that's cool. That is cool.
Speaking of Scream, that's a good little segue. Speaking of Scream, because we have got another one greenlit, haven't we? And we know Sidney Prescott's back.
Mm-hmm.
How cool would it be in this one if she did die, and then just to flip it completely on its head, there's only one Ghostface instead of being multiple, and we never find out who it is. Be the first Scream film to basically not reveal who Ghostface is. That would be the best ending ever. We don't know who killed Sidney Prescott. That would be that would be a talking point. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I think they need to think of something different. Like in the last one where what's his name died? David Arquette's character. Dewey? No, Dewey?
Dewey. Yeah, Dewey.
Yeah. I always get that mixed up with it. What was the... No, it's Doofy, wasn't it, in Scary Movie?
Doofy and Dewey.
But yeah, Dewey, when Dewey dies, like that was like a big moment, but it is kind of... It was big, but I was kind of expecting it. I was like, somebody has to take a fall here, you know. Did Courtney Cox's character survive?
She keeps surviving, yeah. That
She
annoys
did,
me
didn't she?
She survives every time.
You think she's dead, but then she's there at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Gail Weathers, like the ultimate, you know, ultimate survivalist. But yeah, I think Andy hates saying it was all a dream. Sydney to die and then wake up and find Bobby in the shower and he's find out Ghostface all been a dream. You know what I would really like, and for the next Scream, if I was a writer, this is how I'd write it. I would have Sydney, the story to focus around Sydney, and she's being tormented, she's being chased, she's being hunted, all that kind of stuff, and it follows along very much like a Scream-esque film. But at the end of it, you find that she is Ghostface, and she's basically had like a psychotic breakdown because of all this. It's just done her in. Her head is done. So she's almost got like a split personality disorder where she's going out and killing people as Ghostface, but then at the same time she's running from Ghostface because she thinks she's being chased. So it will be like Ghostface on the news and someone's been killed and the rest of it, and then there's her panicking and trying to be one step ahead, and she receives the calls and she receives a very much like a kind of a Fight Club-esque kind of vibe to it. Do you know what I mean? Where you feel that there's these two characters, but then in the last minutes of the film you find out that they're actually the same person. And I don't know how you would write that, but that's what I'd like to see, just to kind of see her finally become the villain herself, but in like a non-cheesy way. So yeah, so that's my pitch for the next Scream. I just think it'd be a good way of kind of concluding it without A, letting her survive, or B, killing her off. But then that would be also be a good way of Gail Weathers dying. Like Ghostface kills Gail Weathers, and Sydney's obviously cut up. But then if you find out at the end it's actually Sydney that's killed her as this split personality disorder kind of Ghostface character.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool, actually. The more I'm saying it, it's like, I'm gonna go write it and pitch it to Scream. But yeah.
What about if another take on that could be, what if there aren't anybody showing up, but Sydney still sees this Ghostface torturing people, but the people turn up fine, and the police are like, "Are you okay, Sydney?" Like, and it's all in her head, and that's when she has the breaking moment of he's inside her own brain kind of thing, and she kills herself to get rid of him or something.
Yeah. No, that'd be wicked. But I just think that, you know, for somebody to go through the amount that she went through, it would have to have some kind of psychological effect on her. It would have to. Like you couldn't go through all of that and not be affected.
When they kill Gail Weathers, they have to do that thing they did in the original Scream film where Gail pulls the mask off, but the camera pans up so we don't see who's behind the mask, and you just see her shocked face as knife goes in. Oh, it'd be so good.
It would be good, right?
The reveal at the end that it was Sydney, and that's why Gail pulls like a weird, like, what the face. That'd be awesome. Right at the end, you'd find out why.
That would be really good. But also as well, it wouldn't be the cheesy kind of like, oh, we've caught Ghostface and it's Sydney. It would be like a real kind of psychological journey and a kind of a, you know, almost like with what they did with Joker as well, where you kind of like you find out at the end of the film that so much of it's in his head, and you're kind of trying to work out what parts are in his head and what parts actually happened. And that kind of thing with her, like they could make it really dark and really twisted and kind of take it to the next level. But then it would close the Scream kind of chapter, but also leave it open for interpretation for the next person. You know, like you could continue the Ghostface, the Ghostface character, the Scream franchise could go on forever. They just change the person all the time, whoever it is that's Ghostface.
I've said for a while they need to end the Scream franchise as it is with Sydney, but then make a new film a few years later under the new name of Ghostface. Yeah, make a Ghostface movie where it can be anyone in any city and anywhere, because it's just a costume at the end of the day. And each Ghostface is just taking, you know, homage of the last one.
Yeah,
it
that would be
it becomes more of a cowl for the psychotic.
yeah, because that's also what made it so scary originally, was because it was a costume. Episodes of movies like Scream 2, where they're in the cinema and there's all these people in the costume, and you're like, literally any one of these could be the killer, but they're not. And then turns out that one of them is. Like, it's that for me was a real kind of, it played on my mind, and it kind of made it really, because before in the first one, it wasn't like they made a big deal out of it being a popular Halloween costume. Like, it was a kind of, it's a Halloween costume, but by the second one, by the third one, it seems like they were on every shop corner,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my pitch. Sydney is Ghostface, but in a psychotic kind of way where she doesn't even realize that it's her.
That would be cool.
That would be deep, wouldn't it? That'd be deep. Don't give us any kind of Sydney kids or, a long lost cousin that was affected of, like, I think
that's
they
why
kind of
that's why I'm getting really sick of these movies now, because like the last one, and when it ended up being the father of the last killer, and I'm like, come on, like, who's gonna come out of the woodwork next?
Yeah, it was that, like, they played on a lot of the kind of red herrings, didn't they? Like, with the whole kind of Billy's kids and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, I think it could be dark. I think it could be really dark, and it would be cool as well, especially if she was like in hiding or witness protection or anything like that. Like the way that Ghostface was getting to these people that you can't figure out how Ghostface is getting to them. How is this happening? Like, but because she's so scared and because she's so on the defense against Ghostface, it kind of pushes the kind of finger away from her. But yeah.
Andy H in the chat, Scream Killer Reveals is the adult version of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It really is. It's kind of getting that way, isn't it?
I still think there's a crossover there waiting to happen. Shaggy being the cousin of Billy, not Billy, Stuart,
yeah. Oh, because he plays Shaggy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He is Shaggy.
That would be hilarious.
Did you see the picture of Matthew Lillard where he was in the costume from Five Nights with,
he's got Scooby inside of it.
Scooby-Doo, yeah. That's a crossover that I'm surprised they've not kind of paid. Talking of Scooby-Doo as well, do you know who plays Velma in that?
No, not something.
It's the same woman who plays Hawkeye's wife in the MCU. Yeah, I didn't even put two and two together until I saw a screenshot of something, and I was like, "Oh, it's her." I was like, "Oh God," I can't remember her name for the life of me, but I was like, "Oh, interesting."
I just remember the film version of Scooby-Doo, and just like she was way too hot to play Velma.
Yeah. It's a weird one because I've not watched them with my younger kids yet, because there are elements of them that are still quite scary.
Is there?
Yeah, some of the monsters.
Oh, okay.
Some of the monsters.
Well,
I was talking of monsters and kind of like old horror films and stuff. Do you remember me talking about The Gate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it on Amazon Prime last night.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm rewatching that at the moment, but I'm having mild child flashbacks. I'm just like, yeah, this is scared. This is scary. But yeah, it's on Amazon Prime for anyone that's interested.
Well, I'll tell you what, with toys in mind, and while we're still about horror, I unboxed the new Idol playing an unboxing with the new Chucky this week.
Nice. I saw your video.
Mate, he's awesome. He's
the
best Chucky figure I own now. He's awesome.
What size is he?
I bought him. So he's the 7-inch scale. So Chucky's obviously a doll, so he's a doll size to a 7-inch figure.
Oh, okay.
So if you're standing with like the nun, he's like minuscule, but he goes up to like a knee. She's like there somewhere.
But that's cool. At least it's in scale.
Yeah, all the NECA figures are in scale with each other. They're all 7 inches in sort of scaled.
But their new Krampus figure, was it NECA that released? That's big.
Yeah, it's massive, but it should be. Krampus in the movie was massive.
Is it based on the movie version?
Yeah, it's based on the movie version of Krampus by Michael Dougherty that made Trick or Treat. So it's based on his version of Krampus. So it's the one with the big horns and the big hunch, and so it's it's going to be a big solid piece of plastic. Someone did a chart that shows how big he is, and to be fair, he's going to be like this. He's going to be quite large.
He's one of the bigger figures that they've done.
He's the largest figure. Well, net one down from the largest figure NECA have ever made for that scale.
Well, there you go.
But so it should be, because I mean, if you put a regular figure at the side of him, he's meant to tower over people. He's meant to be like 8 foot-ish. So he's meant to tower over people. But it's the fact that they keep releasing all these other little minions to go with him, and like they've got the weird clown snake thing, and that's like 60 quid. And I'm like, who is that for? Like, I love horror stuff, but I can't justify that if I'm going to spend 100 quid on the Krampus.
Yeah. See, NECA's a funny one for me because I know you've got quite a lot of NECA.
Yeah, I love NECA.
But I'm quite selective with the ones I've got. And I think at the moment, I think the only NECAs I've got are the Turtles. I think the only NECAs I've got at the moment are the Turtles. I just find the price point for me is that they're obviously higher than your other kind of 6-inch figures, 7-inch figures, like your McFarlane and your Hasbros and stuff. So I see the Hasbros and McFarlane much more at the kind of pocket money is the wrong term because they are quite expensive now, but they're definitely the lower end of the price scale. And then NECA and some of the others that are in that kind of 60, 70, 80 pound mark, I just kind of think, you know what, I'd rather double that and get a hot toy.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thinking.
Yeah, I've been collecting them since they more or less started the horror line. So I mean, I've been collecting them since 2006. So I've built my collection up obviously over 6 years. So I mean, if someone's going to get into it now, it would be a very, very costly venture. But obviously, I've built it up very slowly, and it is one of my favorite collections I own. But everyone goes on about the scaling compared to other figures, and they are 7-inch, but like Freddy is the same size as a Marvel Legend because he's smaller.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So like when you stand him next to Jason, Jason looks down at Freddy like he should. But if you put your Jason figure with a WWE figure or a Marvel Legends figure, it is correct scale because Jason should be larger than them. So
I think that's
right.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people kind of miss when it comes to scaling. So, you know, NECA are predominantly 7-inch. Marvel Legends are predominantly 6-inch. The McFarlane are 7-inch. But that is your baseline. So they do scale up and down. Like your female Marvel Legends figures are not 6-inch tall because they're slightly smaller than some of the males. And then obviously you have your larger figures like your Colossuses and stuff that are much more kind of to 7.5 inch. But then people kind of complain when they do smaller figures, like Rocket Raccoon, for example. It's still a 6-inch Marvel Legend kind of branding, but it's a tiny little figure. But yet they charge the same amount, and I kind of get that. I get that they can't kind of just switch the price points around. I'm gonna just hesitate a guess, but I'm gonna guess that Chucky figure was the same price as your Jasons and stuff.
Yeah, but the amount of accessory it comes with 3 heads, a bunch of hands, different knives, different like syringes and all sorts of weird weapons. So they do kit them out. To be fair, NECA do put a lot of accessories in with them.
Yeah, Triple G's in the chat, and he said similar to what I've just said. Actually, he's got the NECA Turtles, picked up a City Hunter Predator as well, but was disappointed with the quality, stuff snapping off, etc., etc. And I think that's kind of where my head is. That you spend 80 to 90 pounds on a Predator, for example, that's going to be very highly detailed, but is going to be quite fragile. You kind of double that price and add a little bit, and you can get a 1/6 scale one.
Yeah, I've never broke a horror figure. They've never snapped on me once, but I have broke several Predators. Predators, for some reason, seem brittle. I don't know why.
Which is very contradictory to what a Predator is.
But I was just going to show this for scale wise. I mean, like I use the when I'm doing my photography, I always use the WWE sort of like figures opposite them because it just looks funny. And obviously she's 6-inch scale, but obviously she would be smaller compared to him. You know, comparatively, she would be a lot shorter compared to Jason, so it does work.
But they do look in scale. They don't look out of scale. I'm more worried about those 6-inch, 7-inch like leaves behind him. Just if that's your back garden, you need to cut your grass, or
that was my parents' back garden before the mowed it this afternoon. So I'm going to take some photos in your.
Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Sorrell. Your garden's fine. That's fine.
Just for absolute giggles. Well, even like kind of just rambling a minute, just for absolute giggles. You know, it was a really warm day today.
Yeah.
Well, my little girl had a paddling pool out, and I just could not resist this photo.
Of course. Has to be done. To be done.
I've got a video queued up on my TikTok, and it's basically he's in the little rubber ring from it's Barbie's rubber ring. He's in a little Barbie rubber ring. And I've got him just laid there with I put some sunglasses on him, but they fell off by the time I took the thing. And I've basically just like nudged it so it's just like spinning around the tub. And I put it's like pina colada over the top of it and just put happy summerween over it. And I can't wait for that video to come out.
It's interesting that you showed that picture there, because this is another thing for me when it comes to price points of a figure. So when it comes to action figure photography, or videos or anything like that, Marvel Legends and McFarlane, I have no issue with putting them in the mud, putting them in the water, putting them in. Like, I've taken Marvel Legends to the beach and just let the kind of water flow over them and stuff. Like, no problem at all. If I had a NECA figure, I'd be a bit more apprehensive and a bit more kind of like, oh, I can't really put that in the sea, or I can't stick that in the mud. You know, Hot Toys, forget about it. There's no way I'm putting a hot toy like in a muddy puddle. And I think that for me is part of it as well, that kind of like your lower band figures, I feel more comfortable kind of really getting into the grit of the photo and stuff.
Yeah, so you got two types of NECA. So you've got your standard NECA, and then you've got they call them the retro cloth figures, the one that come with the cloth goods. Like, you wouldn't put Scream in the rubber ring because his cloth would be destroyed forever and it'd stink.
Yeah,
so it would never dry properly because you can't take it off, not properly. So you won't want to put him in the water. But like the Jason figures are all solid plastic, and the legs pop off and his arms pop off, and you can put him back together quite easily. So I mean, there's no issue really of anything happening to him.
You need to play with some fire, Sorrell. You need to play with some fire.
I do want to do some more stuff like that. I'm just a bit apprehensive.
I tell you, here's my little action figure photography tips and tricks when it comes to fire. Right, buy a tin of Zippo liquid, like lighter fluid, and use that. Do it on like a non sort of flammable base, so you could do it on the ground, like on the mud or something like that, and basically put all that Zippo liquid where you want the fire, and just light it, and then you've got maybe about 10 seconds to get a decent photo before it burns itself out. And as long as the flames don't kind of catch on to your figure, you're good. But yeah, it's just a way of getting some really good flames. And then if they're not quite big enough, you can always kind of be a teenager again and spray some Zippo liquid on the flames, and they go up. But I love taking photos with fire. It's one of my favorites. I actually did a series of figures not too long ago, and I haven't actually posted any of them yet because I just haven't got around to it, to be fair. But most of them were Ghost Rider, as you can imagine.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Ghost Rider is always good fun to play with the fire. Let's see if I've got them. Oh yeah, there we go. That you can sort of see fire.
Nice.
So yeah, did one with Venom, because Venom obviously doesn't like fire. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I like doing as well sometimes is it's like I like using my pop vinyls and stuff as well.
Yep.
And can you see that? There you go. And like I know a lot of people are against it, but I love doing using my white box and like cutting him out and putting him on another backdrop. And I love that one when it's all work, no play, makes Jack a dull boy. It just fits perfectly.
I think that's really good, mate. I think it's really good. It's interesting you say that, because I've been playing it, because I've always been like a tangible photographer when it comes to action figure photography, just to try to enhance my ability, shall we say.
Yeah.
But I recently did a video. I did a custom rhino. So I got this head here. Blue Kingdom did the head, and then I sorted the body out and everything like that. But I took some photos of it, and just out of a quick picture on a white background, mirrored surface with the with 2 Spider-Man figures, and then I was playing around with like the AI element of it.
Yeah.
But look how good that looks. It's like it's insane how good it can look, like with the shadowing and everything like that. It doesn't look like it's on an AI background. Like
completely. That's
or
like
Photoshop background.
Yeah, completely. And that's like this one I'm going to put up now. This is one of my favourite ones I've ever managed to pull off. And the smoke is fake. That's completely fake smoke. It's not real. It's just layered well. And that is not a tangible shot in the slightest. It's all layered up, and it's a fake background. But I just love how it came out. So I mean, sometimes I like I like using the computer to kind of like layer it, so like I can put the Pterodog behind her and have her in front, and then you put the bits of smoke elements in. And
well, that's the thing.
I know that's completely. I know if I wanted to, I could do that tangibly, completely. But it was for me. I'm better on a computer than I am with a camera. So I can take a mediocre shot and turn it like into a bit more of an art piece.
But this is the argument. This is the argument because obviously you've got your tangible kind of action figure photography, and as I said, I've always been a massive fan, and I've always kind of tried to like take what I've learned from others and try to come up with stuff myself and that. And I do like being tangible, but I also like playing around with computers and Photoshop and layers and all that kind of stuff. So it takes me as much time, if not more, to get a semi-decent computer generated image as it does to get a decent tangible image. And like I said, for this one, I had to get all the lighting right on the characters because I knew where I was going with the background. So the lighting had to work in the background. So it wasn't it wasn't as much of a cheat, but I wouldn't have been able to get that background fully tangibly because of the depth of it and stuff. Well, I could, but obviously it wouldn't be affordable. And so I think that there's pros and cons on both sides. I think that you know it's not to be discredited, the Photoshop side of things. Yeah.
So when you've got a movie still, you can do stuff like that as well. Whereas you won't be able to do that tangibly. That's impossible to do tangibly. But I mean that is literally a still from the movie that I've captured and then stuck them over the top of it. But that again is one of my favourite images ever made. I think it's hilarious having Beaker and Bunsen with the packs on, and you can just imagine that. Are you a god? No, we're Muppets.
But you know what? If you got like a purple light and lit them from the back, so they looked like it was coming onto them, it would make it even less. Like it disguised it even more as a non-tangible photo. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. It is an interesting one, and the debate on it is always kind of, you know, people are in one camp or the other. So
Jenko T. I've got images of Ash like Sid from Toy Story with Atari's toys in the back garden.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jason's head just spinning around going, "We see everything."
Tied him to a rocket. So I haven't had any pickups this week. You haven't had any pickups this week, have you?
Just the mask. I got a couple of Scream masks from Mad About Horror sent over. But that's it. That's all I've had this week.
I got loads of stuff being sent, but it just seems to be a really quiet week where hardly anything's turned up. So I'm like,
Next week, the new Scream figure will be dropping. So I'll be picking up one of those. And there's something else dropping from NECA next week as well. I'm sure there's 2 figures next week. But yeah, there's like a couple of things that are dropped in. But everything's sort of like... The toy industry's kind of come to a bit of a slowdown, hasn't it? Things are coming out a bit slower, slower at the minute.
Yeah.
So it is taking a little while to get things, but I'm not bothered by that because it's making it easier for me.
Yeah. Did you see Marvel Legends finally did a Venom? Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, man. Pre-order went up for that on Wednesday. It retailed at about, I think it was about £34. It wasn't hugely expensive in comparison. But the scale of it is very much in keeping with the it was Dan put some pictures out on his, I think it was on his Twitter, of the in-hand image next to other characters like Venom and Spider-Man and stuff like that. And it looks good. It looks really good. It's a brand new sculpt. I mean, I put on my Instagram, I was like, I'd never thought we were going to see this figure because they didn't seem to really do much with the Venom side of it. They obviously gave us a Venom and that was it. It was kind of like a one and done. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that, and that comes out soon as well. The pre-order for that, like I said, went up Wednesday. And I think it comes out in the next month or so. And it's not an exclusive anywhere either.
That's a quick turnaround for that one.
Yeah, it's definitely this year. It's definitely in the next couple of months. But yeah, it made me kind of question as to whether there's other movie figures that are kind of in the wings that we just haven't seen yet, because they've obviously had a massive drop off in the MCU side of things because of the Infinity Saga kind of coming to a close. Like nothing's really stuck since, has it? Like everything apart from the Spider-Man figures, movie side of it, they've got a real sticking point. So it'd be good to get some extra figures.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm still not brought into Hasbro anymore recently. I'm still kind of on the fence. I'm still kind of not picking up much that they're releasing these days.
For me, it's more now just filling gaps. So things like Cable came out. So I was like, well, I have to have a blue and yellow Cable. So picked one of them up. Carnage came out. I was like, well, that's a given. Like, I have to have Carnage so I can put it next to Venom. But yeah, apart from that, there's a lot kind of being pushed out that I'm just like, I'm not too fussed about that. But have you seen the price of the X-Men 97 figures? Have just shot up.
The roof, haven't they?
Like shot up. I sold mine off for like literally for retail. Like I opened them up and I was like, well, I need a Rogue, but I'm going to keep the retro Rogue as opposed to the X-Men 97 ones. So I sold it off for like 25 pound or whatever. And they're selling on eBay now for like 70, 80 quid, like unopened, which is it's a massive hype train because of obviously the TV show.
100%.
Like I cannot imagine how people are now jumping on it. Joby One's saying as well, a line that neither one of us really collect anymore, but Black Series. Black Series has been going crazy. Obviously with Star Wars Day and everything, they have been pushing out a lot of figures. But nothing's grabbed my attention.
Yeah,
nothing's got me. The Accolade, is that the right way? Is that the name of the show? Yeah, the Accolade figures kind of piqued my interest because it was like, oh, new Jedis. This could be fun.
So now I've had time to digest. Because I was when they first got announced, then we got the Acolyte trailer, and I was kind of, Star Wars, kind of like fresh Star Wars. Now I've had time to digest it, and I've had time to think about it. I couldn't give a toss when that Acolyte even comes out at this point, to be honest.
Really?
I'll catch it at some point. It's not. I don't know. I think I'm just done out with it all. It's same with superhero movies. I think I'm kind of just done in with it all. I think it's been a long 10 years of build up of all the Star Wars and Marvel and DC. Just it comes like a stagnant ending for it all.
It is. It's kind of solidified itself as a genre now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas kind of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it wasn't a genre as such. We were getting the odd film here and there. But you must be hyped about Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, yeah. That is the one film that I'm literally can't wait to see.
Yeah. I mean, that's one that obviously is on everybody's thing. And as Shelley pointed out a little bit earlier, tickets for Deadpool go on sale tomorrow. Yeah. So it came out across all of the channels, didn't it? Like social channels like Ryan Reynolds and Marvel and stuff, just saying that the tickets were going on sale tomorrow. So
I think we'll get a little extra footage, a little sneaky trailer.
I don't know.
It'll come out to sort of celebrate that tickets are on sale.
I really don't know. Do you know, there's so many articles about it. I even read somewhere that Ben Affleck is going to show up as Batman.
How would they get away with that?
I don't know how they'd get away with it, but supposedly Deadpool jumps through a portal and ends up in the wrong universe. And
it's not in the realm of. He did work with DC on Green Lanterns. I mean, he must have contacts somewhere.
Yeah,
DC are hardly in a position to say no.
I think the only way it would be plausible is because that portion of DC, like that kind of Snyderverse, if you like, they've quite clearly kind of drawn a line underneath and sort of said, right, that's finished, and now we're on to the James Gunn stuff. So it would be a cameo for the sake of a cameo.
Yeah, unless it's Deadpool, very tongue in cheek. Oh look, it's a billionaire in a bat cave. I mean, like Deadpool just being like looking at the camera and saying something really deadpan, and being dead cheesy. That's the only way. Like they could do that without getting sued. That they could get away with that.
But even for them to kind of just do I don't know how it'd work, but like a one-off payment and just kind of go, like, here's a meal or whatever. Like we'll use Ben Affleck, but I can't see it being a return on investment enough. I can't see it being worth an investment of funds. Because it's not like everyone's wanted to see Deadpool and Batman next to each other or anything like that. Like
I'd rather see him go through a portal and pop out outside as Jay and Silent Bob and for him to shake hands with Kevin Smith. I mean, that would be more of a cameo because obviously Kevin Smith used to write Deadpool comics back in the day, and he wrote Daredevil comics. So I mean, that would be a better cameo.
And they cameoed in Scream, so let's be honest. Like that's that's not a million miles out. I'd like to hope we get another trailer or another something, just a sprinkling of something, because I think with all the speculation and all the rumors that are circulating the film, if you actually think about it, we haven't really been given a huge amount.
No.
Like they haven't, and nothing's been spoiled. Like there's been no real spoilers anywhere for anything. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation, but there's no real hard, this is what the story is, this is what's happening. Not that I've come across anyway.
No, not at all. I think there's going to be one of those. Do you remember when Infinity War came out and there was that hashtag Thanos demands your silence?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? I think there'll be something like that for this, where it'll be Deadpool demands your silence or something.
Yeah.
And they'll try and get people to not put spoilers on the internet so everyone can kind of enjoy it.
Yeah. It's one of them ones. I'm gonna have to see it literally the day it comes out because I don't want to even risk a spoiler. Right.
If there's a midnight launch, I'll be there.
Yeah, hands down. But again, like Marvel Legends, coming back to Marvel Legends and MCU figs, that there was an image circulating the internet a couple of weeks back where there was the Deadpool and the yellow suited Wolverine, like as a 2-pack, and it wasn't a spoiler as such because we've seen Wolverine already. But yeah, I mean, there's so much. The one thing that the Marvel Legends teams, and I go back to Marvel Legends when it comes to kind of indications or spoilers, because they tend to kind of cover their own backs in regards to, we haven't got figures for this, but we will do them retrospectively, like what they did with Spider-Man. And they've kind of made that same statement ahead of the film coming out. Whereas with Spider-Man, they made it after the film came out. So it's kind of like, yeah. Jenko T said, I think we'll get a trailer with Taylor Swift as Dazzler to get all the Swifties going to see the film. Extra money and tickets sold for Marvel. Yeah.
If
Andy Hayes said Wolverine's in Deadpool 3. That's ruined it for me.
If they're gonna get if Taylor Swift is in it as Dazzler, because that is a rumor that's going around. If she is in it, then I'd imagine that he would do. Ryan Reynolds would do what he did. Do you remember when he did that one where he was like, "Oh, by the way, Wolverine's in this movie," and he just literally said it. I think it'll be like a shitty trailer like that where it'll just be Ryan Reynolds in his house. And he'll go, "By the way, we got Swifty." It'll just be something like that. It'll be something cheesy. I don't think they'll ever show her until the big screen, because that would be a massive pop.
Yeah.
Because people have been saying that for years, that she should be Dazzler.
It wouldn't even need to have any kind of coherence to anything bigger. Like to just have her as Dazzler.
Just have her in it.
Like it's
have her on stage singing a song while Deadpool's murdering fools around her. That's all he would need to do.
Oh, what if she sung the theme tune like Celine Dion did? Oh,
yeah, that'd be amazing.
What if they had Taylor Swift as Dazzler singing the opening theme?
Yeah,
done. There you go. That would be insane. And there's never, even if they dressed her up as Dazzler, it was just Taylor Swift singing the opening theme, but in like a a very obvious Dazzler costume, and nothing's ever said. So they've not actually cast Dazzler. They've not put Dazzler in the film, but everyone's kind of like, well, it's Taylor Swift as Dazzler. That would work. Because I still think having Celine Dion sing the opening theme to Deadpool 2 in like the style of James Bond was like
hilarious.
brilliant. I still love that song. Like, and it just instantly makes me think of the film. But obviously the whole Canadian link there and everything. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
I love the fact that my wife listens to that song and I could just smile and be like, "You're listening to Deadpool soundtrack." That's the funniest thing on the planet.
Yeah. Andy H said, "What about her singing 'Shake It Off' as he's getting shot?" That'd be pretty funny.
I was gonna say as well that I think there's gonna be the X-Men theme tune in this film as well, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be they've got Wolverine in the yellow and blue. You don't think there's gonna be a moment where even if it's just the 3 chords of because they did it for Professor X, didn't they? In Doctor Strange, you heard the as he came out.
Yeah.
Deadpool just going cue 90s soundtrack just before they start fighting. It literally goes Wolverine. Shing.
The thing is that obviously we know that this version of Wolverine's the last survivor. Yeah. So they've kind of pre-framed that there are no additional X-Men coming with him. But obviously we do know they jump between universes. So,
or at least from his universe.
They could very easily jump into like an X-Men 97-esque universe where we see like a real life version of those characters.
It's the Jim Lee versions.
Speaking of Wolverine, though, that's one thing that 97 didn't do. Like, Wolverine didn't have a huge story arc. Like, I think he was probably the least used character in the whole show. Like, even Morph had a bigger story arc than Wolverine.
Then the thing that was needed, because the 90s program was, Wolverine the show, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that's the biggest difference. It's like, and even in all the kind of big fight scenes and stuff, he seemed to always be somewhere else or somewhere that wasn't fighting. But yeah, I just kind of came to me there. But no, I'm really hyped for Deadpool. Not really hyped.
Did you see some of the new trailers out this week for TV stuff?
Let's go through them.
So, a lot of the Rings of Power Season 2 teaser came out.
Looks amazing.
That does look awesome. We're slowly getting there now, aren't we? We obviously they've all got the rings now. It showed all the men and dwarves all getting their rings.
Yeah, it looked amazing. The one problem I had with it is that I couldn't quite remember how season 1 finished. So I'm going to have to go back and watch the last episode of season 1. I remember loving it at the time, but I think I'm going to have to go back and watch season 1 again.
So my understanding is that this was the story of Morgoth's ring, which is one of the unfinished tales from J.R. Tolkien.
Yep.
And basically Sauron's back now. Sauron is back.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it ended, with Galadriel kind of chasing him down. It's going to be a really good show. But did you see that they've greenlit a new movie called The Search for Gollum? That looks interesting, with Andy Serkis reprising, and he's also directing as well.
Yeah.
I think that could be an awesome bridge movie, because obviously they've made The Hobbit, they made Lord of the Rings. It would be a good bridging story, or whether could it be it depends where they set it. Is this gonna be Gollum from the movie? Like, is this gonna be like the movie version? Or is this gonna be for the new TV series stuff?
Yeah. I don't know. I was trying to recall my Lord of the Rings kind of knowledge, because I have read them and I've read The Hobbit, and I was trying to remember where like the term search for Gollum would fall into play. I don't remember them ever searching for him.
So yeah, in Lord of the Rings, in the beginning bit where it tells you the story at the beginning before the film starts, and it says, and they found a creature, and it just shows him going Baggins, that's where they've caught him at that point. He's not, because obviously they know Gollum's got the ring, so they're searching for Gollum to get the ring back.
But how are they going to
capture Gollum?
How are they going to do it without bringing back any of the other actors?
Because none of the characters are in it. It's just Gollum and the orcs.
So it's going to be the orcs searching for Gollum.
Yeah, Gollum's just skulking around Mordor and He's looking for the ring himself, isn't he? He's looking for Baggins. Baggins stole it from him in The
Oh,
Hobbit.
of course. So that's where you think this is gonna fall.
It'll probably more likely be the search for Gollum will be the orcs. Being like it might, because obviously Christopher Lee's dead, so you can't even have Saruman return. So it must be just the Eye of Sauron that does the whole fight Gollum. You know what I mean? Sends them on a path to go get him. But I reckon it'll be a band of orcs and stuff chasing down Gollum. But I think it'll be from Gollum's perspective, won't it? So it's Andy Serkis. It'll be the main character.
I'm not surprised because obviously, I mean, he's an incredibly talented actor, director, motion capture performer, whatever the official term is. But Gollum is the kind of that was the jumping off point, wasn't it? That was the starting block. So yeah.
So I reckon the film will end with the orcs actually capturing, and I reckon it'll have quite a bleak, dark ending of Gollum being tortured and getting the whole Shire Baggins and basically recreating that bit.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it was my issue with it. It's just kind of like, where are they going to put this, and how are they going to make it into something that's watchable on a weekly basis? Like,
yeah, so there is a game that did come out a couple of years ago, based on Gollum, where you played Gollum trying to escape Mordor. You had to. It was a stealth game. That came out for Xbox, but it wasn't very well received. So I'm wondering whether the people that wrote that have basically pitched it as a TV series or movie or whatever, rather than the game, because the game wasn't overly successful.
There was a Lord of the Rings game on the PS2. I think it was Return of the King. Absolutely loved it. Could never put it down.
Oh yeah, the movie ones on PS2 were amazing. And they also made that game called The Third Age. Did you ever play that?
No.
So The Third Age was you played as either a human, an elf, or a dwarf, and you were always you were part of the Fellowship, but you were just always one step behind. So you were turning up just as things were like wrapping up. You were like leading your own little story through Middle Earth, trying to catch up to Aragorn. It's a great little story. I used to love that game. Played it so much.
There were some really good games on the PS2, that kind of era. And it wasn't that they were simpler games, because obviously they were simpler games because the graphics engines and the storage capacity and all that kind of stuff has gone on leaps and bounds since PS2. But there was just something very addictive about the play of those games. Wasn't there a Matrix one as well?
Oh god, yeah, the Path for Neo.
Path of Neo, that was it. Yeah. I loved it.
Neo finally.
They
also made Enter the Matrix, didn't they? Where you got to play as Niobe, and
I had that as well.
That other guy.
Yep, I had that one as well.
Speaking of video games, this Wednesday on Twitch, obviously I do social media full time now, so I'm going to be streaming all day on Wednesday on Twitch, and I'll be uploading it to YouTube when I'm done. But I'm going to play The Quarry in its full entirety. I'm going to sit and play the entire 8-hour campaign in one sitting.
Wow.
Basically, it's based on like 70s and 80s camp horror, like camp counselors. So it's like a bit like Friday the 13th.
Yep.
And basically, it's got him from Scream in it. Who played Dewey? Got his name.
David Arquette.
Yeah, David Arquette is in this game. All the people in it are motion capture.
Oh right, nice.
So it's all acted out and all voiced and stuff. And basically, it works like a television series. It comes in episodes, and it's like one big quick time event. Really, you just make the decisions for the characters, and your decisions have outcomes. So there's like 8 different versions of the game depending how you play it.
Oh wow!
So like one of the camp counselors will turn into a werewolf, and you have to make a decision whether you let it run away or whether you shoot him, and that has a massive impact later on in the game because the werewolf ends up killing someone else in your team, in your party kind of thing. If you don't kill it. So it's a very cool game. Oh, it's a brilliant game.
Is it? How old is it?
About a year, 2 years. Not even.
Really?
When did it come out? Let's have a look. I'm going to scare myself now, aren't I? 2022. So yeah, a couple of years old now. You can pick it up relatively cheap now. It came out on Xbox and PS4. Great game though.
Oh, there you go. I know. I'm always struggling as to what game I need to pick up. I was going to get Guardians of the Galaxy because I still never played that one. But I kind of feel the hype train's over now. I heard so many people hype about it. I'm kind of like, if I'm going to get something, I want something a bit different.
Yeah.
But I really want a new game to kind of get my teeth into. But maybe I'll pick that one up.
Yeah, the Quarry's good because you're like me and you like that cheesy old 70s 80s horror, and it's definitely got that feel to it.
Yeah, that's good.
It's very much has a feeling of like it's very much like in the style of like Jason and Lost Boys, and it's got that feel to it. Like it's a summer horror as well.
Amazing. So on the subject of Jason, what was it we were talking about before coming on air?
So the Jason universe has been announced, which has been met with a bit of the fans aren't overly pleased by this, I don't think. But the Jason universe has been announced. Horror Inc. begins a new era of Friday the 13th franchise. Basically, all the different people that own bits of the franchise have all come together. Well, because obviously we had that Crystal Lake TV series, didn't we, on Peacock? That's kind of we don't know what's going on with it in a minute.
Yep.
But this is to do with the original franchise. So there's a certain person that owns the rights to Jason. Then there's another people that own the rights to the name Friday the 13th. And then there's New Line Cinema that owns the rights to the Jason movies. All them three people have now come together, and they've said they're going to make the Jason universe. So the idea is anything that comes out now, whether it be games, TV, movies, whatever, will all fall into the Friday the 13th Jason universe.
Okay.
They're basically encouraging people to go sign up on the website for the Jason universe to get updates on what's happening. But it's the next step in the Jason storyline, apparently, and it's the future of Friday the 13th as a franchise.
So they're moving it forward. They're not going back and redoing stuff.
I think this is going to be like I think they're going to basically start anew, because obviously the timeline for Jason is very convoluted as it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you had obviously the Friday the 13th movies, then you had all the random Jason movies that didn't really tie into the originals, and so.
What? Here's a bit of trivia for you, and I've just thought about it, and I don't actually know the answer. But why is it called Friday the 13th?
I don't know, because it happened on Friday the 13th.
That's what I just wondered, because there's never any mention of the date, is there? Like, it's not.
I wonder whether it was meant to be like, when Halloween was first made, they made the first one with Michael Myers, then the second one with Michael Myers, then they made Season of the Witch, because they said they wanted to move on. They didn't want every film to be about Michael. I wonder whether Friday the 13th was meant to be the same, whether they made the first film, with his mother, then the second film they introduced Jason, and I wonder whether the third film they were meant to move away from it, but because Jason was so popular, they just continued with that character.
Yeah, maybe. If anyone who's watching in the chat knows why
Genuinely
it's called Friday 13th, like genuinely knows,
it could be simply because it happened, like he was killed on Friday the 13th. I think that was based on it.
Because again, this is my understanding, is that Friday the 13th, before the movies came out, wasn't a thing. Like, people talk about Friday, it's Friday the 13th, but that wasn't actually a thing pre-movies.
It was, because it links back to history of the Knights Templar, doesn't it? Yeah.
Does it really?
Yeah. So if you look it up, the Knights Templar were
I'm going to Google it now.
Yeah, the Knights Templar were betrayed by the King of France, I want to say, and he hung a bunch of Knights Templars for heresy on Friday the 13th.
Oh, really?
I believe that's one of the reasons why we're thinking of Friday the 13th now. Eerie of it.
Oh yeah.
So it's got links to Templar Knights.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's actually quite a lot. There's one in Norse mythology. There's one in pagan mythology. Okay. All right. So there is something more to it. There's the Templars, like you say. Oh yeah, there is actually quite a lot. Christians, there's a Christian explanation to it. Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of a thing. I think obviously Friday the 13th probably commercialized it more than anything.
So the number 13, if you go down the Christianity route, the number 13 is to do with the Last Supper, and Judas being the 13th guest to arrive. So therefore that number became cursed. But then, like you say, there is lots of different areas that have the Friday the 13th as a bad sort of date. But then, you know, looking at all of those origins, yeah. So there we go. So Jenko wasn't to the Bible. Yep. Okay, there we go. So the Friday the 13th movie, this is going to be my next question, is that if the origin of the day is all to do with religion and Knight Templars and Norse mythology, they've all got their own kind of version of it. Why is the movie called Friday the 13th? Because it's got nothing to do with any of those. But do you know this? A Long Night at Camp Blood?
I had no idea.
But decided on the Friday the 13th for something to do with the bloke who wrote the script and screenplay. Maybe that's where I was getting mixed up.
I'm going to really shock you now. I've not seen all of the Friday the 13th movies. I think I've only seen the first 2, 3.
What?
I've seen Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2. And then
I've seen the original ones.
The original ones, yeah, the originals. I've seen Part 1, Part 2. I've not seen the rest of those. Then I've seen Jason Goes to Hell, Jason Takes Manhattan, and Freddy vs. Jason, and Jason X. Those are the ones I've seen out of the entire franchise. I've never sat down and watched like 1 through 6 or something. I've never sat and watched the original bunch.
See, Ryan speaks geeks in the chat, and he went, "What?" But see, I think this is where being like a kid of the 80s, I think for me, your Friday the 13th, your Halloween, your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Child's Play, like all of those films were things that I was shown very young at an age where it was probably inappropriate for me to be watching them because they were scary movies. You know what I mean? It came to Halloween and we watched a scary movie and stuff like that. So
I've said this before. My introduction to Chucky was Bride of Chucky, and then I went back and watched Child's Play. But I was introduced to Chucky via the Bride of Chucky movie.
Wow. What did you make of the first one after coming in it from that angle?
It was hard to watch because obviously I know Chucky as the wisecracking Chucky.
Yeah.
Whereas originally he wasn't really like that. It wasn't until about Part 3 that he started becoming a bit of a smart mouth, wasn't
it? Yeah. Part 1, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's just a doll trying to kill a kid.
Doll that's alive, like. And obviously, you loosely kind of find out about the curse and the murderer being put into it, and that, but it's very much a kind of, it's thrown in there as a kind of this is why the doll's possessed. You know, it wasn't really a fleshed out. There wasn't like a long backstory or anything like that. But yeah, Ryan, very true. Our childhood film viewings explains a lot about us three as adults. Pretty much. But I have this debate in my head. Like, I do have this kind of conversation quite often that there are films that I won't show my kids because I think that they're too much, that I watched as a kid myself. But then kids nowadays, like the generations now, are exposed to so much more. Like, let's be perfectly honest with you. Because of social media, because of internet, because of the way news channels work and social media accounts like TikTok and stuff work, there's a much higher chance that a child of 10, for example, has seen something graphic on one of these social media channels or on the news or something like that. Whereas back in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, the graphic content was kind of kept within those movies. Yeah. So seeing, like, for example, let's talk Nightmare on Elm Street. The scene where, I can't even remember if it's a boy or a girl. I think it's a girl. And I think it's a boy. But basically, he's in the dream with Freddy, and Freddy slashes his stomach. And then the girlfriend sees the cuts just appear on his stomach. Burnt into my head for years and years and years. Because I was like, whoa, that person's been cut open. Whereas now, even stupid programs like what's the Dr. Pimple Popper or whatever it is, or that, you know, like even that, you see like scalpels cutting things open and things being pulled out and stuff, like, and children are exposed to that. Whereas when I was a kid, seeing somebody's stomach getting cut open by this kind of invisible knife was graphic, was insane. And it was the same for Chucky and Child's Play, and like seeing things on that. Whereas when I go back and watch them now, I'm like, actually, they're not as bad as They were. Yeah.
Yeah, like my daughter knows of the characters because of the YouTube channels that she watches.
Yeah.
So there's all these weird kids channels where it's like the parents dress up and all this weird crap. And like they'll play like what's it called, that something neighbor, like a real life version of that where there's the dude dressed up as the weird neighbor.
Oh, hello neighbor. Yeah.
So like there's stuff like that she watches. I'm like, what are you watching? But then she knows of characters like Megan and Chucky and Sam because these YouTube channels that are aimed at kids have those characters in there. Like there's she come across one the other day that was "Don't play with Chucky at 3 a.m." but it was on the channel that normally produces kids content. So it's like, it's like, Jesus, what are you watching? But she knows she knows what the characters are. She knows who they are.
The same can be said about like Huggy Wuggy, for example. Huggy Wuggy, the origins of Huggy Wuggy are quite, with a computer game and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was mass produced into a toy and shorts and YouTubers doing like Huggy Wuggy videos and stuff. And so you have kids like my youngest son, who's 5, knows all about these characters, but doesn't watch the videos himself, but knows all the backstory and knows all the characters because we walk into Smith's and you see it. But yeah. Ryan again has come up with a thing. We've said this many times, but Ken are making toys of 18+ horror films. Like, Alien. Alien's a prime example, and I always come back to Alien. But I had so many Alien toys.
I never considered Alien and Predator or them kind of films. I didn't class those as horror, and I never have. Because I watched Alien when I was a kid. I wasn't phased. My dad showed me sci-fi films my entire life. And I grew up watching Predator and Alien and Arnold movies and Stallone movies, and I wasn't phased by any of them.
See, here's my counter argument though. I'm the same. I wouldn't class Alien as a horror film because it's about an alien, so it falls into sci-fi. But if you switched out the alien character for a killer, the film in itself is very scary in the way that it works and the anticipation of stuff. And it's the same as Jaws, like the way that it's filmed. It's what you don't see is what's scary. And I never would have classed it as a horror, and therefore I watched it religiously as a kid when I was really young, and has permanently scarred me for life. Like, I will never get into the sea. Like, it's just because I know that there's a Bruce. Simple as. I've seen that shark eat people. Not going for a swim. Thanks very much.
See, my introduction to real horror, as I would call it, because I don't consider Jaws horror either. That was always just an action movie as I was growing up. But Dad never considered that horror.
Jaws is one of the best horror films of all time.
But I remember it was a sleepover with a couple of friends, and the first ever real horror film I watched was The Exorcist. We watched The Exorcist, and then we watched The Shining, one after another. That was my introduction to horror, which to this day I do say that's the way to introduce someone.
Yeah.
But those two movies are iconic. But I was 13 at the time, for God's sake. That scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Yeah. I just see, but do you class something horror, like something that is a horror? For me, it's about the what it leaves with you, what you walk away from remembering. Is a horror. If it scares you to the extent where you're in a different situation and you think of that thing from a fear point of view, that's a good horror. Doesn't matter how much blood it's got in it, doesn't matter how gory it is, that to me doesn't constitute as a horror. A horror is something that leaves a mark or leaves something with you. That's how I kind of group horrors. So if I'm watching something with my boys, for example, I'm like, you know what, this is full of blood and guts, but by the time the end of it comes, they won't think about it again. So that's something that would go in the potentially okay pile. Whereas if I kind of look at it and I'm like, you know what, if I show them this, they're not going to want to get into the sea, or if I show them this, they're not going to want to go. Like Final Destination, for example.
Yeah.
I wouldn't show my kids those films. They know all about them, but I wouldn't show them because then I know that they wouldn't get on a roller coaster again, or they wouldn't, and that to me is a good horror. What it does to you psychologically.
Yeah.
You know, I have a list of films where, and I always threaten my oldest boy with this, and my daughter as well. And at times when they're misbehaving, I'm like, listen, you need to buck it up, or I'm going to show you a movie that will scar you for life. And I've got this little list of films that I know that I could put on, and that would be it. Like, and it doesn't have to have a monster in it. It doesn't have to have a, you know, a big gruesome scene. Like, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, my daughter terrifies me. She's quite feral, and she's very dark. She's very dark. I was watching. I was playing the Friday the 13th video game.
Yeah.
She was in the room with me watching it, and about 10 minutes, and I'm thinking, this is really inappropriate. I'm like looking at her on bed, and she's like, and the fact that she sat there and went, because she realised that when I grabbed hold of someone, there's loads of checkpoints around the room of what I can do, so I can smash her into a TV, throw him into a wardrobe, decapitate their head, all this stuff. She started chanting in the background like a lunatic, put him in the TV, put him in the TV, put him in the TV. I'm like, you freaking psycho child.
Jenko T said something interesting there, that he, as a kid, for years, he would scream before having a bath because of the bath in Ghostbusters 2. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Prime example.
One of those movies is Barney the Dinosaur. And the age.
Barney the Dinosaur. Yeah. That's a dark film. That is a dark film. But yeah, no, I just yeah, I think as well for me, like my wife hates horror films. Like she hates scary films, but you know, it's what when I'm watching something and she's in the room, I'm kind of like, is this something that I know she'll ask me to turn off, or is this something I can get away with if she's not watching? Like, and that's I've got a real like obstacle course for watching horror films with an audience.
Yeah, no, my wife think if I put on something like House of a Thousand Corpses when she's in the room, she'd be like, if she saw that film, she'd be like, "There's something wrong with you." It's like if you're enjoying watching this, there's something wrong with you, pal.
Yeah,
she's not into. She's more into animated Disney movies and Despicable Me, and she loves all the kids' animated crap. So I mean, trying to get her to sit through The Shining would be impossible.
Yeah,
it just wouldn't happen.
Mate, if I've got Walking Dead on and some of the walkers make a noise, my wife's like, turn it off or turn it down. Like, come on, like they're not even scary. Look, they're just like corpses walking around. Like, but yeah, but for me, it's about what it leaves on you. Like, I'll know whether I'm gonna watch something or not if I know that if I'm gonna think about it afterwards. You know.
I'll tell you what though, because I like what I call kids spooky films as well.
Yeah.
So like now that it's almost summerween, if you will, it's almost that spooky summer season. So like I dug out like half the Scooby-Doo movies. I've dug out like the Addams Family 2 that's set at the beach, like Hotel Transylvania where they're on holiday. I've pulled out all those kind of films.
Yeah.
And like Addams Family Values because they're at camp in that one, and I've pulled out all them kind of films.
The summer horror films, yeah.
Yeah, like your summer kids horror movies, and I love them kind of movies.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, me too.
Spooky doesn't always have to be scary for me. I do like the lighter side of, not horror, but you know what I mean? Like the lighter side of introductory horror.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Before we run out of time though, is there anything else that we've not talked about this week?
Yeah. So we had the trailer for the House of Dragons season 2 as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that popped up this week, and obviously then we got The Boys as well pop up, didn't we?
Yeah.
So there's been a lot this week to catch up on trailer wise. Very excited about that, and a new South Park trailer as well for The End of Obesity is the next big Comedy Central one that they're releasing.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
But Four Horsemen gave us a awesome looking set of figures.
Yes.
For their figure Obscura line.
Yes, let's end the show on these because these are good.
Yeah. So we've got Anubis, and we'll come to her in a minute for her name. I can't remember it. Anubis and Basset. So these are based on Egyptian gods.
These are awesome. I'm just saying it now.
So
these
cool.
are really cool.
They are really awesome.
Yeah.
But they look so good. That Anubis figure, especially, I really want the Anubis. I'm not too bothered for the other one, but Anubis looks amazing.
But they just haven't. No, I can't think of a good figure line that's kind of touched on ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at all those accessories.
Yeah, the amount of stuff the Figure Obscura comes with is great, and I'm loving that big Anubis box as well. Because obviously I've got the Mummy playset from NECA, so that would scale with it. Because obviously the Figure Obscuras are very similar scale to NECA.
Yeah.
So they all kind of scale quite well. So all them pieces I can just use in my Mummy display as well, which is just awesome.
That's just fantastic looking.
Yeah. And there's all her set. Because I mean, you got both of them have got sets of stuff.
Wow, look at that.
So they both come with some amazing.
I like that they've got the like human looking feet and then like the morphed kind of feet.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, so you can basically build them however you want. That's what I love about Figure Obscura. There's so many options for display. Box art just looks
so
awesome,
good. They just look so good.
So you can grab these now on the Four Horsemen website. With the Figure Obscura line, there's no massive pre-order window. So if you bought one when it comes out, which I'm guessing soon, I'll look at that up in a second for you. If you order one now, it'll arrive in a couple of days. I mean, they do very quick turnarounds, and they usually send them out express mail. So you usually get them within 72 hours of them sending it out.
But how much would these retail at for UK people?
So let's have a look. Let's have a quick gander because it'll be on here. So the set is 120 for both, which that ain't bad to be honest.
$120? That is not a lot.
So it'll be $120, and it's usually about 40 in shipping. So
$40
$160 for the set. About $40 shipping. It's not cheap.
Okay, but 140 for two.
It arrives within 70. It arrives within 72 hours. Like that's what I was saying. It arrives quick, and it's from Jersey in America. So the figures will go on sale on yesterday, on Saturday, the 18th of the 5th, and a second planned drop. So there will be another planned drop as well. But yeah, they look awesome.
They are really cool. They really, really are good. So what did you say? 160 altogether.
So it'll be about 160 altogether with shipping for the UK market.
So that's roughly about 125 quid.
Yeah, that's not bad for two figures, and they're quite high. They're very high quality figures.
So you're looking at what, 63 pounds each, there, give or take.
Yeah, that's about right. Jacob Marley cost me about 65, so that's about right.
Yeah. So you look at it as round it up to 65, and you're going to cover any kind of mini payments, whatever. But 65 quid per figure is not that bad.
Figure Obscura only release 2 figures a year, so they only release like 2 drops a year, basically. So they've released this as a 2 set, like a 2-part. But they'll release another one near Christmas time, but it's like summer and winter, so they drop them half a year apart. So you can kind of keep up with that line quite easily. It's a little bit more expensive, but the quality of the figures are amazing.
But when you spread it out, if they're doing 2 a year, and you're looking at what, 125 quid over kind of 6 months, there's not a huge amount if that's the only thing you're collecting. And
the best thing is, these are Figure Obscura, so they are a part of Mythic Legions, and they break apart just like a Mythic Legions figure, because all the Mythic Legions just pop apart.
Wow.
You can pull apart every piece on a Mythic Legion and rebuild the figures in whatever combination you want. That's how I was able to make my Pumpkin Lord that I made. It's completely custom. All the pieces came off about 4 different figures.
That's so
came off
cool.
Them vampire ones that I found. Came off them.
That's so cool. Oh man, I think I'll have a look. So where can people pick it up? Where should they look?
So the Four Horsemen website. If you go on Store Horseman, it's called, and you'll be able to buy it from there.
Play on words.
It is great. Yeah. So yeah, the Store Horseman website will have it. They usually do a couple of drops. So if they've sold out now, keep checking back because it will come back in stock.
Excuse me. Yeah, that was the same as the Jacob Marley one. It sold out like literally within 24 hours.
And the thing is, if you do miss the boat, then join the Four Horsemen group on Facebook for the UK. Mm-hmm. People on there sell them all the time. So a lot of people buy them for the hype, get them in hand, and then go, actually, I'm not a big fan, and they'll ship them on to other people at cost. So I mean, you can always grab one. And yes, Emporium of Cool as well, as Shelley pointed out. Emporium of Cool do get Mythic Legions in as well.
Yes, which is obviously a retailer here over in the UK. You can look them up by.
And don't forget, this is this is the first drop of that figure. So if you remember, like they've dropped like the Mask of the Red Death and the Headless Horseman, and then they revisited them 6-7 months later and gave us the glow in the dark version of the Headless Horseman, and also the all black version of the Mask of the Red Death. Same with Krampus. They gave us a red Krampus and a black Krampus. Yeah. So they always revisit for a second figure, which is slightly different to the original release. Right. So if you miss Anubis this time around, he will be back. Anubis will appear again.
There will be something different.
We're waiting, like for this Christmas. They've already said it. Said in the book that comes with the figure. For Jacob Marley, it said this is not the end of the Christmas Carol. So they're clearly going to use that body for a secondary character, which is probably going to be Scrooge, I reckon, this year. It'll be the same. It'll be the same body, just with some new heads and accessories.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll keep an eye. Keep an eye out. Cool. Yeah, we talked our way through this week. Like it's actually flown by well quickly. Tried to get to as many of the comments as we could. If you're watching us on repeat, if you're watching us on catch up, Mr. Sorrell, what is it that they need to put in the comments?
Hashtag catch up crew.
Hashtag catch up crew. Thank you very much, everyone that's joined in, that's joined along. We've been on a bit of a tangent this week. We will be back next week with a little bit more of a structure to the show. We're going to have like a main theme that we kind of talk about. And we will let you know in the thumbnail and obviously when the show goes up what that theme will be. You got anything exciting happening this week, Sorrel, that we can look forward to next week?
Not a sausage, mate. It's a quiet time for me at the minute. I'm saving up for Orlando, so I'm going to Florida in September. So I'm saving the pennies because I'm going to spend some serious dosh in Universal and Spirit Halloween. Because it's only my second ever time going to Universal Horror Nights. And I do plan on spending a lot of money on Chucky merchandise and Annabelle. And you
can have a blast, mate. You can have an absolute blast. I've got a few drops coming this week, so I'm not sure which ones they're going to be. But I should have a couple of figures by next week, which would be quite cool. Cool. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone that's been watching, that's joined along. This was episode 152 of Geek Week. We'll be back with episode 153 next week. Until then, keep it geek.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and of course subscribe. Tune in next week for another live show. Until then, keep it geek. www.geekweekinreview.co.uk